Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Explainer. Look, I am so incredibly excited for today's breakdown because we are diving into a massive, lore-heavy, and frankly, absolutely chaotic chapter in the Infinitum campaign. We're talking about Act 2, Session 24, which is famously known among fans as the Blighted Lands. If you've been following along, you know exactly how high the stakes have been getting. But this session, it completely turns things on its head. We've got environmental hazards, hilarious NPC interactions, terrifying dungeon gauntlets, and a mystery that literally alters the sky. So let's just unravel all these mysteries and dive right in. Okay, let's dive into this because this session kicks off with one of the greatest mysteries the Holy Crusaders have faced so far. And it's a perfect example of incredible world building. We pick up right where the previous session left off, right? The party is standing at the very top of a giant wizard tower. They've just spent all this time and mental energy solving a series of giant-sized riddles, so they're probably feeling pretty good about themselves. They go to look out through this massive telescope into the night sky, expecting to see something beautiful, and instead, they make a chilling discovery. The moon hasn't just been eclipsed. It hasn't just been covered by clouds. It has completely, entirely dissipated into a cloud of smoke. It is just gone. Poof. Now, the party immediately questions the invisible gnome who happens to be in the room. The guy's currently covered in stardust, so naturally you'd think he has some answers. But he swears up and down he knows absolutely nothing about it. Just imagine the sheer confusion for the players at the table here. It's a brilliant move by the Dungeon Master. It's a perfect example of how removing a constant, reliable element in your world creates immediate, terrifying intrigue. I mean, what do you even do when the moon vanishes? Puzzled and completely without any immediate leads, the group decides they need to backtrack. They resolve to head back to the Halfling village, hoping anyone there, might have a clue. Along the way, they decide to rest for the night at a familiar, safe location, the Cave of Wonders. So they are resting safely inside the magically lit Cave of Wonders. Zato is taking his turn keeping watch. It's a quiet, peaceful night, right? Well, suddenly, the absolute silence of the night is shattered by a massive, booming thump coming from directly above them. It sounds like something incredibly heavy, something massive, just landed right on top of the cave roof. And then, a loud, commanding voice booms from outside, stating that it knows they are in there and demanding they give back what is rightfully his. The team, whose heart rates are surely spiking at this point, rushes outside to confront whatever this threat is. And what do they find waiting for them? A young gold dragon. Now, if you know anything about this game's lore, a gold dragon is typically a force of good. But regardless of its alignment, you absolutely do not want to pick a fight with one if you can avoid it. It's basically a flying tank. The players, very smartly, pivot straight to diplomacy. They ask the massive beast what sort of treasure it's actually looking for, pointing out that, hey, there's really nothing valuable in this children's cave. This whole interaction is a fantastic reminder of the value of non-combat solutions in tabletop games. You don't have to fight everything. The dragon explains that some kids stole toys that were specifically made for their young wormlings. Zato, showing just great memory and incredibly quick thinking, immediately realizes what the dragon is talking about. He rushes back into the Cave of Wonders, opens up a secret compartment they had discovered much earlier, and brings out the toys. He presents them to the dragon, and just like that, completely diffuses what could have been an absolutely catastrophic battle. Now, with its precious treasure retrieved, the young gold dragon turns to fly off into the night sky, satisfied. But wait, the Holy Crusaders still need answers about the missing moon. They can't just let a highly intelligent, ancient, magical creature leave without questioning it. So Brother Ezekiel steps up and brilliantly uses the thaumaturgy spell. If you're not familiar, this spell allows him to magically amplify his voice so it booms with incredible, unnatural volume. He calls out to the dragon, trying to convince it to come back down. The dragon, clearly a little curious about this tiny, squishy creature with such a booming voice, actually returns and asks what they want. Ezekiel, respectfully and probably very carefully, asks if the dragon knows why the moon disappeared. And the dragon delivers this chilling, huge revelation. It says that a nefarious blight upon the land to the east seems to have consumed the moon. The players, realizing the scale of this, immediately ask what they can do to fix this. The dragon tells them point blank that they must completely remove the source of this blight in order to restore the land, and just possibly restore the moon itself. Having dropped this epic, campaign-altering quest hook, the dragon refuses to answer any more of their questions and flies away with its wormling toys. It leaves the crew standing there in the dark to ponder their massive new objective before finally going back to sleep. And this brilliantly illustrates how varied and character-specific travel mechanics can be in a well-played role-playing session, because the next morning the Holy Crusaders pack up their gear and begin their trek back to the Halfling village, knowing they eventually need to pivot and head east toward this mysterious blight. But navigating the fantasy server's terrain is no joke, guys. It's a real challenge. First off, Ezekiel has to use his control water spell just to get the party safely past these incredibly dangerous rapid rivers. Then, they reach the volcanic area, Volcano Pass. They are faced with crossing a deadly, bubbling stream of literal lava. Look at how they handle this because it's so perfectly tailored to each character. Arya and Antonella use their draconic ancestry and flight abilities to just grab Ezekiel and simply fly right over the lava stream. Easy mode, right? Zato, being the paladin, takes a completely magical approach. He hops onto his summoned Fey steed and effortlessly teleports across the gap. And then there is Barkin. Barkin is a massive barbarian. He lacks magic, he lacks wings. So what does he do? Barkin confidently decides to just leap across the lava stream using sheer, raw physical strength. I mean, it is a completely heart-stopping moment at the table as he throws himself over the molten rock. And let me tell you, he barely, literally by the absolute skin of his teeth, manages to clear it. It's such a fantastic showcase of how different classes tackle the exact same environmental obstacle in totally unique ways. So after crossing the deadly volcanoes and picking up a few massive healing blueberries near the Happy Tree, the party finally makes it to the Halfling village just as evening sets in. I want you to notice the wild tonal shifts of this campaign here because it's masterful pacing. We go directly from life-threatening travel mechanics at Volcano Pass straight into hilarious, cozy downtime. They visit their cat-person friend Sight Kith, who literally lives in a cardboard box that secretly leads down to a lavish underground home. Sight Kith welcomes them warmly like old friends and cooks up a hearty, comforting dinner of fish, rice, and broccoli. It's an incredibly wholesome scene after the stress of the day. Sight Kith's little daughter, Minnie, gives Antonella this sweet drawing of a flower, but then she gives Barkin a drawing of Barkin using his massive greatsword to violently chop the head off an evil mushroom. Barkin, of course, being a barbarian, absolutely loves it. But the absolute best part of the dinner involves Sight Kith's son Mickey, who flat out refuses to eat his broccoli. Ezekiel, seizing the perfect role-playing moment, leans over to the kid and tells him that he never ate his broccoli either, and that is exactly why he is so short. The logic hits the kid perfectly. Mickey absolutely panics, wolfs down the broccoli instantly, and then quickly washes the nasty taste away with his fish and rice. It is a brilliant, entirely non-combat use of a character's physical traits for just fantastic, memorable role-playing. All right, so the next morning rolls around, and the group decides to hit the town. They need to do some shopping, stock up on supplies, and get ready before their big, dangerous journey east into the Blight. However, they run into a massive, hilarious problem. The halflings in the village have been smoking their pipes all morning, and they are incredibly high on weed. Out of their minds. In fact, they are so out of it that they seem to have completely forgotten the basic economic concept of selling things. When the Holy Crusaders try to do the normal adventurer thing and haggle down the prices of goods, the high halflings get confused and playfully just keep raising the prices instead. It is an absolutely absurd and deeply frustrating situation for these adventurers who are just trying to gear up for a life-or-death mission. Despite the total confusion, Zatotis steps up and manages to successfully persuade one of the merchants. But even with a genuinely great persuasion check, all he manages to walk away with is exactly one potion of healing. Just one. Realizing that their gold is essentially useless in this town today, the group just throws their hands up, gives up on buying supplies, packs their bags, and lets Ezekiel lead the way east toward the great unknown. Let's move to and see how this builds, tracking their progression throughout the day to see how the tension escalates, because the DM puts on a masterclass in pacing here. The party has no set path, right? So they are literally bushwhacking through tall grass, rocky crevices, and lush forests, which slows their travel down considerably. They depart the comedic relief of the halfling village in the morning. By midday, the tone shifts dramatically as they spot a massive red dragon flying a few miles north, aggressively breathing fire and attacking a structure. By the afternoon, they go to investigate this and end up having a bizarre and incredibly humbling encounter with the Icedale wizards. And finally, as evening approaches, the environment fundamentally changes around them, and they cross the threshold into the eerie, highly dangerous Blighted Lands. This is just perfect pacing by the game, moving the players from a place of absolute safety and humor, slowly stripping away their comfort, and finally dropping them into a high-stakes, horror-tinged environment, all in a single day's travel. Let's look much closer at that midday event, because the visual spectacle here is simply stunning. As the party gets closer to the commotion they spotted, they see a classic, iconic high fantasy scenario, a terrifying red dragon aggressively attacking a tall stone tower. The tower is completely engulfed in roaring flames. The Holy Crusaders, being the heroes they are, decide to rush in and help. I mean, that's what heroes do, right? But before they can even draw their weapons or cast a single spell, they witness an incredible display of magical artillery. From the top of the burning tower, 5 massive beams of pure ice shoot out in perfect synchronized unison. The contrast is spectacular. You have the dragon's roaring fire breath pushing desperately against 5 concentrated lasers of frost. The ice beams slam directly into the red dragon simultaneously. The beast roars in absolute agony and is instantly repelled, tucking its tail and fleeing into the sky. And then, the fires on the towers slowly dissipate, and the very stone walls begin to freeze over. Within moments, the entire tower, doors, windows, and all, is sealed inside a solid, impenetrable wall of magical ice. Fascinated by this insane display of power, the party walks up to this newly formed ice fortress and knocks on the wall. A small section melts away, revealing a window and a very serious-looking wizard staring back at them. The players, naturally, puff out their chests and introduce themselves as the legendary Holy Crusaders, the epic heroes who defeated the game's ultimate villain, Genghis Khan. They fully expect awe, gratitude, maybe a reward. Instead, they are met with supreme arrogance. The wizard completely dismisses the game's major antagonist, stating flat out that Genghis Khan isn't so tough compared to the Icedale Wizards of Winterchestenville. The players suddenly have this massive, sobering realization. These are extremely high-level NPCs. These wizards casually swat away ancient red dragons before lunch. They probably could have defeated Genghis Khan themselves if he had ever bothered them. Suitably humbled, the party quietly asks about the Blighted Lands. The wizard simply tells them to head east, and then abruptly tells them to leave immediately because he has tower repairs to attend to. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this scenario handles players who overstay their welcome. You know how it is in these games? Players love to loiter. The crew lingers outside the tower for a few minutes, quietly discussing among themselves how incredibly powerful these ice wizards must be, but they aren't moving fast enough for the wizard's liking. Suddenly, without any warning whatsoever, a massive, magically conjured, curved wall of ice violently springs out from the ground directly beneath the party's feet. A booming voice echoes right inside their heads, commanding them to leave already. The players lose their footing and are forcefully, and honestly, quite comically, slid 100 yards away to the east on this giant magical ice luge. It is a brilliant, humbling moment for any dungeon master out there to take note of. They are powerful heroes, yes, absolutely, but this world is filled with entities far stronger than them. Picking themselves up out of the dirt, they dust off their armor and decide it is definitely, absolutely in their best interest to follow the wizard's directions. They continue heading east, definitely not wanting to pick a fight with magic users who can reshape the physical landscape just to tell someone to get off their lawn. After walking for a couple more hours, the atmosphere fundamentally shifts. The sun is still technically up in the sky, but the air grows incredibly thick, and the sky itself begins to darken unnaturally. The vibrant fantasy landscape they've been traveling through just dies away, completely replaced by the Blighted Lands. This is an eerie, deeply unsettling wasteland. The ground isn't covered in grass anymore, but an endless sea of dead, brittle twigs that crunch loudly beneath their boots, making any kind of stealth almost impossible. And scattered everywhere, partially buried in the dead wood, are the bleached white skulls of various unidentifiable creatures. It's a literal graveyard of nature. You can feel the tension drop at the table. The party drops their guard, their voices hushed to a whisper, as the sheer, suffocating creepiness of the environment really sets in. And there, looming way out in the center of this dead zone, they can make out the silhouette of a gigantic, twisted black tree. They immediately know, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is the source of the corruption the Gold Dragon warned them about. They draw their weapons and begin the tense, silent march toward it. But reaching that black tree is not going to be a simple walk in the park. The Blighted Lands is designed as a brutal, relentless dungeon gauntlet designed to wear the party down through pure, agonizing attrition. Let's systematically look at the steps of this escalation. Step 1. Almost immediately, dozens of small twig blights jump out of the brush and ambush them. Now, individually they are weak, but there are so many of them that the party takes a lot of chip damage before Ezekiel can feel them up. They push through some nasty thorn bushes to Step 2, an attack by 4-foot-tall needle blights. Thankfully, Arya and Barkan are hyper-vigilant here and aren't surprised, making quick work of them. More healing from Ezekiel is needed, though. They push into a vine-covered area for Step 3, an ambush by 8-foot-tall vine blights. Arya and Antonella spot them just in time. They defeat them, but the party is now heavily worn out. They are actually forced to take a short rest right there in the dangerous wasteland because the stakes are simply too high to keep going wounded. Ezekiel warns everyone that trying to sleep for a full, long rest here would be an absolute death sentence. Finally, exhausted, totally out of hit dice, and running purely on fumes, they push forward to step 4. Huge, root-smashing tree blights assault them. This time, Arya and Antonella are caught completely by surprise. The threat level is peaked, and the party is quite literally fighting for their lives. So the crucial point is how dangerous this final step of the gauntlet really was. The tree blights are massive, and their physical strength is overwhelming compared to the earlier creatures they fought. During the sheer chaos of the ambush, one of these massive wooden monstrosities actually manages to grapple Arya. Thick, thorny roots wrap entirely around her body, trapping her, and then the creature begins to literally suck the life force out of her. It drains her almost to the point of death before dropping her limp, unconscious body to the dead earth. Ezekiel, burning his precious remaining magic, rushes in and manages to heal her just enough to bring her back to consciousness. And let me tell you, Arya is furious. Extremely upset and completely traumatized by having her life drained like that, she channels all her anger into a violent, spectacular outburst. She summons her psychic blades and absolutely shreds the remaining tree blight into splinters. It is a brutal, desperate combat moment that shows just how incredibly close the Holy Crusaders came to a total party wipe, right on the very doorstep of their final objective. Panting, bleeding, and surrounded by the shredded wooden remains of the blights, the party finally looks up. The smaller, spooky trees clear away, and they are finally face to face with it. The gigantic, menacing black tree. It stands hundreds of feet tall, an absolute monolith of corruption dominating the dead center of the wasteland. Its bark is pitch black, its branches are twisted and completely devoid of any leaves, and a palpable, heavy aura of dark magic radiates from its roots, seeping into the soil and killing everything for miles around. It is the undeniable epicenter of the plague that has consumed the land and stolen the very moon from the sky. The party stands before it, knowing they have to destroy it, but they are already heavily depleted from the gauntlet they just barely survived. The atmosphere is suffocatingly heavy. They ready their weapons for what will surely be a boss fight of truly epic proportions. But before they can even take a single step forward to attack, or even take a brief moment to celebrate surviving the gauntlet, a sound stops them dead in their tracks. It isn't a voice spoken aloud in the air. It is a deep, ancient, and profoundly evil voice that echoes telepathically directly inside the minds of every single player. The gigantic black tree is sentient, and it speaks this terrifying, chilling threat right into their heads. You have disturbed my children, and for that, you will die. And guys, that is exactly where the session ends. Talk about a massive, stress-inducing cliffhanger. The Holy Crusaders are exhausted, they are incredibly low on resources, and now they are locked into a life-or-death battle with a sentient, ancient source of evil that has the sheer power to consume the moon itself. How will they possibly survive this encounter? What tactics can they even use against a boss of this unimaginable scale? We will be covering all of that and so much more in our next deep dive. Until then, think about how you'd handle this. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.